Today we're going to take a look at the history of the Radical SR3 SL. But before that, with this being such a small company, I thought we should look at the history of Radical sports cars themselves. So please join me in this adventure, and then we'll go ahead and test this car as well as the engine swap variant over at the Tokyo Expressway to see how it fits on our leaderboard. The story of Radical sports cars is a tale of grassroots racing passion turned into a globally respected motorsport brand. Born in the late 90s in the UK, Radical took an auspicious approach to build lightweight, high downforce racing cars that gave club racers the feel of a fully blown Le Mans prototype race car at a fraction of the cost of the real thing. The company was founded in '97 by two racing enthusiasts, Mick Hyde and Phil Abbott. They were both frustrated by the high cost and limited accessibility of motorsport for amateur drivers. Their idea was simple but revolutionary. What if we build a race car that handled like a prototype and could be serviced affordably and didn't need a team of engineers to run them? The answer came in 1999 with their first creation, the Radical 1100 Club Sport. It was a featherweight car powered by a high-revving 1100cc motorcycle engine, typically from Suzuki, and it was fast, raw, and affordable. Radical's innovation wasn't just about the car, it was about the experience. They created the Radical One-Make Racing Series, where customers could buy a car and race it in a tightly regulated field. This approach kept the racing competitive, affordable, and attractive to privateers. Their first car, the Pro Sport in 2000, was an upgraded version with more power and slicker aerodynamics. In 2001, they created the SR3, which is the predecessor of this car, and this is the car that made Radical famous. It was powered by a tuned Suzuki Hayabusa engine featuring a space frame chassis and full aerodynamic bodywork. The SR3 became a bestseller and the most raced car in the UK for several years running. In 2005, Radical made headlines with the SR8, a track monster powered by a custom-built 2.6-liter V8 made by joining two Suzuki Hayabusa engines, which was dubbed the RPV8, with over 360 horsepower and weighing under 700 kilograms. It was savage and quick. And this is actually going to be a similar engine to what we swap into the engine swap variant, only it's coming from the Suzuki prototype race car, the VGT car, which is essentially the same concept of taking two Hayabusa motors and merging it together to make a V8. In 2005, the SR8 set the fastest lap ever recorded at the Nürburgring by a street-legal car at 6 minutes and 55 seconds. And in 2009, the SR8 LM beat its own record with a time of 6 minutes 48 seconds, which was a record that stood for years. This wasn't just marketing, it proved that Radical's engineers were world-class. By 2010, Radical had cemented its reputation among hardcore drivers and racers with the SR3, but their customers demanded a road-legal version, which was growing in part from vehicles that were seen on the road from Ariel, Caterham, and KTM. So, Radical made a daring move. Take their most popular model and evolve it into a machine that could actually legally be driven on the street without neutering its race-bred DNA. This is where the Radical SR3 SL came from, with the SL standing for street legal. Now, street legal is referring to England. It's not legal to drive these things in the United States, unfortunately, so don't go shipping one of these things over. Unlike most track cars built for the road that simply slap on lights and bumpers, the SR3 SL underwent some serious development. They changed the motor to a Ford EcoBoost 2-liter engine that was turbocharged and tuned by Radical to produce around 300 horsepower with a curb weight of 725 kilograms, or about 1,500 pounds. The power-to-weight ratio was staggering for this setup. The transmission was a 6-speed paddle shift sequential transmission which added race car theatrics and real performance, allowing for lightning fast gear changes. Now, if your Gran Turismo setup has a clutch and a physical shifter, you could still set this car up to use a clutch, which is the way I prefer to drive it. The chassis was retained from the SR3 with its space frame chassis and the slick aerodynamic package, which has that huge rear wing and adjustable suspension and that big rear diffuser. It's uncompromising. Still roadworthy, but it was stiff and loud. The interior had some compromises with their adding a digital dash, road tires, headlights, and indicators, and even a heater, but it was still very sparse inside. You didn't get cup holders, but you did get a lap timing integration setup. The SR3 SL was homologated under UK's individual vehicle approval system for road use, but it wasn't really easy to register everywhere. It did open the door to a new kind of ownership for this car, though, where you had a Le Mans style car you could drive to the track, set blistering lap times, and then drive home again at the end of the day, if you weren't just worn out from the experience. This was never meant to be a high volume car or a commuter car. They were targeting serious enthusiasts and gentleman racers, but it ended up getting a cult following in Europe and the Middle East, where road regulations were a little bit more favorable and you are more likely to be able to put this thing on the highway. Although the car isn't as widely known as the Ariel Atom or KTM Crossbow, the SR3 SL proved that Radical could do more than just track cars. It showcased the brand's engineering muscle and inspired future models like the XRC, a more enclosed and even more road-focused and road-legal supercar. The version I'm running here is the V8 swapped variant, and this car will break 200 miles an hour pretty easily, but the lightweight ability of this car is a double-edged sword. As you see here, it will start letting go on you. It does have downforce, but it's not adjustable downforce, so this car has a tendency to feel super light, and if you go into a corner at all too hot, it's hard to get it slowed down. But let's go ahead and bring this thing over to the Tokyo Expressway and see how it handles our lap. Fully tuned with the original engine, the Radical will end up with 446 horsepower and 410 foot-pounds of torque. This will give it 727 performance points, so just swapping the tires or something like that, it's a pretty good car to run against the 700 series race cars, and it's extremely light, where the overall weight of this vehicle comes in at 1,709 pounds. So in this configuration, the downforce that it generates is more than enough to keep the car planted, and it's just a blast to drive. You can run into the corners and throttle this thing out flat out, and it's going to stick and do what it needs to do. Being a lightweight car, it's also very forgiving on the fuel and the tires. So we saw this car getting about 5 laps before it needed to head into the pits, and the front tires after our 3 laps wore at about 10%, with the rear tires wearing at 20%, and it felt grippy the whole way. So that's with the soft compound, which wear really quickly. You can always extend these things either using the fuel maps or adjusting to a harder compound tire and getting a little bit extra distance out of this if needed, but you really shouldn't have any kind of issue. You can actually feel how light and responsive this thing is as well. That allows you to go a little deeper into the corners before you brake also, because it's so light it doesn't take as much braking power to stop this thing. So it gives you a nice advantage overall, even though it's a small engine vehicle. This car is available in Brand Central, so you don't necessarily have to rush out to pick one up, but it's a lot of fun to drive, especially in VR with that open cockpit design. We ended up crossing the line in 2 minutes flat, 0.323, which put it right behind the Charger RT with the 426 Hemi, and just in front of the Amuse S2000. But keep in mind, this is a small lightweight sports car, so it's not meant to be at the top of the list. But let's go ahead and check out the V8 Hayabusa swapped variant and see how it handles that engine. Dropping in the bonded V8 Hayabusa engine in this car really wakes it up. Now, where you could come out of the corners and just plant the throttle with the stock engine, this one you need to be a lot lighter on that accelerator pedal. You could use traction control if you're not at the stage of the game where you're comfortable feathering the throttle, and no shame there if you're there, but do not just stamp on this thing. It does not have adjustable aerodynamics, even though it looks like it should, and I feel like it should, but it's 250 to the front and 400 to the rear, and this car will get light at speed. It hits speeds around 220 miles per hour pretty easily, so it's very fast for the amount of downforce that it's generating. The engine is producing 759 horsepower and 477 foot-pounds of torque. It does add 66 pounds, but that's minimal. So this thing is just an absolute beast. Because of that, for endurance races, I actually prefer the stock engine car, but this one is just an animal for if you're looking for excitement, this is where it's at. And it is drivable. It's not, some of these cars are over the top. This car is very capable of handling this engine. You just need to be careful when you hit that top speed and brake a whole lot sooner than you would, even with it being lightweight. It's borderline off the ground by the time you're ready to stop, which is what happened to me over at the Nürburgring. We saw 15% wear to the front tires with this and 50% to the rear, and that's just because it's overpowering them. But we still got 5 laps on the fuel, so this is a great car, and it's a lot of fun and very exciting to drive. We ended up crossing the line at 1 minute 51.683, which is much quicker than the other variant, just in front of the Ferrari F40 and just behind the Roof CTR3. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay clean out there.